I have the privilege today at the CEO Talk to be with Stefan Koenig, a Vice President and General Manager with Takeda Pharmaceutical. Welcome, John.
Hi, Joel. How are you?
I'm very well, and you?
I'm good as well. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Luckily, the family and myself are healthy and safe, and it's great to be able to connect with you in this new modality.
Nice to hear. It's a pleasure. I would like to discuss with you how you see the crisis, how you live it through, and what you are learning from it. So let me start with my first question. What is or was the impact of the crisis in your area?
Yeah, so I work in the pharmaceutical industry, and I represent a multinational biopharmaceutical company. So I think luckily we are in pharma, in biopharma, and especially in innovative biopharma, in an industry that is not adhering to the normal economic cycles. So this means also in the current downturn, we have had no immediate impact to our businesses. I think I'm speaking for the pharmaceutical industry in general, not so much about Takeda, but also Takeda in particular didn't have any particular downturns. I think we may be seeing some impact in the forthcoming months, as I do expect less patients coming to physicians and less patients starting therapy. And I think we also may see some lack of adherence and compliance to certain therapies. I think it will impact the industry at some point, but I think it will be relatively benign when it comes to the impact compared to many other industries. So again, I think we are in an advantageous situation that we don't really adhere to these economic upturn and downturn cycles in pharma.
Yeah. Thanks. And how do you experience this time professionally and personally?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think I would really take it in two separate pieces and parts. One is the professional piece, and the other one is, how personally I've dealt with the family and, with the kids in school and all of that. So from a professional perspective, I think we have been, and especially when you work in a global position, like me personally and a lot of colleagues, home officing, working remotely, working in planes, working in different offices around the world has been a norm for us since many years. So we are well equipped when it comes to our IT systems, when it comes to WebEx settings, to video presence rooms, to cameras, camera equipment, to speaker phones at home and home office settings at home. That we have been able, and I've been personally been able to relatively easy transition into not coming to the office anymore and stop traveling and essentially doing my work routine largely from the home office setting. So luckily that has been well set, and the company luckily has an infrastructure that supports this very well. I think though, after a while, and we've been in this situation now for almost 2 months, or probably 6 to 8 weeks, and it's foreseeable that we are not going to be back to a normal very soon. And of course, there is some churn on motivation and some personal connections that you miss with colleagues. But again, I think we've been able to find through WhatsApp and through video, using very frequent video talks like we are doing today. So on every meeting, we are now turning on our cameras and we're looking each other straight into the eyes. So we've found an etiquette that helps us to deal with that situation as well. And even the personal context, we've tried not to let down. So I would say we've been able to cope fairly well. I do realize there are other parts of the company that have been through more hardship. These are people that work with their hands in a production environment, researchers in a laboratory setting. If you work in a wet lab, you need to come. You can't just simply transfer that to your home setting. And I do realize that there is a much higher burden on these people, and I do appreciate the staff that is continuing to come to work, because they have to. They have to continue to come to work because we have important work, important studies that is ongoing. We have important trials that continue to be run. We have experiments in different areas that have to continue, and I'm very appreciative of that stuff that continues to come. That's the professional piece. So as you can see, it's a mix between the office-based staff with a great support network, and then the manufacturing and laboratory and research staff that still have to come to work, and I think largely have been able to do so as well. And then the other piece is, of course, the personal piece, and I think we will look back at some point at this time as a time that we have probably unparalleled to any other situation, been very close to the family for a prolonged time. So this brings challenges, but I think it brings so many advantages. And I don't think I've ever spent so much time with my kids and with my wife, being so close with each other, to each other. And we've really enjoyed that as a family. I think it comes, as usual, with challenges. It comes with certain conflicts that you may not have seen prior, and it comes with a huge burden of homeschooling. I have two sons, which are 8, 6, and 10, and both of them are staying at home now, and they are not at an age where you can just leave them unsupervised. The schools have been great to provide some online and digital learning platforms, and both of my kids work on their iPads on Microsoft Teams and deliver on their daily tasks. But still, it is very different than sitting at home and me being on the video calls and the kids being in school and learning, and then maybe spending an afternoon or evening together, with having to supervise your kids on a daily basis. My wife is an architect, for example, so her workload has decreased significantly, which is great in that situation, so she can spend more time with the kids. Whilst my work life has become, I would say, even more intense, because what has been a simple interaction, just walking over to a colleague, has now to be a video call, and that has to be scheduled in advance. So I'm spending much more time, I would say, in my personal home office than I've done in my past. But I think generally we have been very lucky and very privileged. I do realize this as well, how we've been able to get through that crisis, living on the outskirts of a big Central European city. To be, we've been, very well, I would say, generally.
Very interesting. Thanks for sharing how you balance those two areas. You already alluded on some changes of the way of working, for example, with the WebEx and having cameras on, which is probably new. Do you see other best practices that you have been developing in those last 6 to 8 weeks, and which one worked particularly well?
Yeah, that's also great questions. The obvious one we have already mentioned, so it's like this rule of generally, if possible and permissible, turning the cameras on. But I've been, in the previous question, I've been alluding to maintaining a work-life balance. It's very easy in these times to lose that work-life balance because, and I just coming off from a call with a colleague who's working in the emerging market area, and the emerging market area at Takeda stretches from South America to Southeast Asia. So that particular colleague, she's been telling me that she's been on call 16 hours a day. So I think it tells you easily how you can get deviated in your personal life with that. So another best practice that I've personally done for myself is I've blocked evenings out on my calendars. So I'm usually, if it's not an urgency, there's often something urgent coming up, but regularly, from between 6 and 10, I'm not taking any calls, and I'm spending time with my family. I'm preparing food. I'm, being outside, with the kids. And I think it is important for everybody to find this free space. For me, it is the time between 6 and 10 in the evening. For another person, maybe at the morning time or a time around lunch, or it may be depending on the children's school schedules. And I think it's really important to listen to yourself, understand what your personal needs are, and within that situation that you are, with having a computer and having a cell phone always available, also to clearly black out time on your agendas. Then the other piece, more work-related and a bit more tactical, is we have been establishing WhatsApp groups with each other in bigger and even smaller teams. So I think I have now about 10 different WhatsApp groups that I'm a part of, and people have found a way to what would have been a normal chat on the desk or just calling a few colleagues together in a meeting room. They found a way to do that digitally. It's not as good as in person, but I think it's coming pretty close in some instances where you just need to quickly connect the dots or make people aware about a specific thing. So these WhatsApp groups, and I couldn't be WhatsApp, we are using WhatsApp, but it could be any other sort of group platform that allows you an informal way to communicate real quickly. And then I found, in particular with senior management, even up to board level, text messaging has become quite regular. I mean, I'm texting a lot on the regular SMS messages. As I said, even to board level members. Yeah.
So basically, recreating that social life through technology.
So that is typical for the home office setting as well. So we have kids, sneaking in on video conferences. I'm actually glad it happened because it shows how natural the setting has become. So I was trying to make a cup of coffee. I forgot it in the kitchen. And my son was so kind to bring it up to me in the home office.
I mean, I've read an article where people said this enables to discover also the private side of people.
Right.
So it's another experience. So basically, you were saying about recreating through technology the social interaction of work, and of course the life balance as well. Those best practice will remain. You're pretty much working with it as a global team head in remote ways with the team. So, do you think those practices will remain after the crisis?
For sure, I think there's a lot of items that will remain post-crisis, and I think now in that particular question you're addressing the ways of how we work. I think you will see probably much less of travel going on and a lot more home working time. I've had a regular 1 to 2 days homework, if permissible anyway, in my global role, because if I sit in Zurich in front of a telepresence screen, or I do the same thing at home, it's exactly the same. And I've been telling throughout with colleagues and team members and encourage them to do the same. I think that's really important. And that is just accelerating what a few of us have been doing already, but it's just broadening this. And I think this will for sure remain, and just being at home and people realizing that you're at home and not in the office will be a normal thing. I think these digital connectivity on digital work groups, on using digital means of communication is another piece that for sure will remain. And then looking into how we communicate as a business with our customers, for example, is yet another piece where I see a rapid transformation that has been ongoing, but that is so much accelerated now. Like we classically in pharma, we visit our customers with sales representatives or key account managers, and these interactions have not been able to take place in the last few weeks, and they're not going to take place in the next few weeks, probably months ahead of us. And I think there's an acceptance, both internally and externally driven, of accepting digital communication channels, both email, but also video presence conversations with physicians that are already happening, and that I don't see that going away either way. And then there's a last element. If you look at how our kids learn at school and how digital means are being used now in this situation at school, is also something that will not go away. Schools will become more digital, and the way we interact, will dramatically change. I see this crisis as an accelerant in many ways of really helping the acceptance on both ends, on the sender end and on the receiver end. And I think that will for sure make a tremendous difference on how we work, and it will help us to gain some life quality back that we may have lost a little bit in the jet age, because I foresee that there's much less business-related travel. And when I say travel, I don't mean the big intercontinental travel only. I mean travel from one city to the other, or just travel from home to work, or travel from home to school. That will happen. And I think there's an ability, and this is one of the positive things of that crisis, to give us back that life quality that we may have lost.
Very interesting. Thanks for sharing all this learning and this experience. You lead a global team, very geographically distributed. What has this crisis, circumstances, changed in your management or leadership style or ways of leading the team?
Yeah, great question. I think what I'm doing right now is I'm more conscious how I talk to people, and I'm more conscious about the wording that I chose, because I realize not always seeing, we spoke about turning the camera normally on, but there are a lot of conversations that happen, without camera, or a chat on be it via SMS or via WhatsApp or any other platform. And then just being very conscious about the wording choices that you do. I think I've been much more careful in choosing my words and in ensuring that my message has well understood. So these questions in terms of, do you understand what I mean? Or is that clear enough? Or, even if you have the lightest doubt, if there was a lack of clarity, then doing a follow-up phone call just to ensure there's a really solid understanding, because it's so easy in written communication, and when you don't see each other, to misunderstand something. I think that's probably the biggest difference that I'm making now, that I actively, much more than in the past, require a confirmation of how that message has been received to understand if we have landed on the same level where I originally wanted to land. And haven't done that as much in the old times in the face-to-face setting. Then the other piece that I've been changing is I've been much more clear in terms of the feedback and much more frequent in the feedback that I'm giving. When I see something that's not to the standard or to the expectations, or there's an improvement with an individual on my team that I would expect, I'm much quicker to give that feedback, because I classically don't want to wait for the 5 minutes that you have to reach out to that individual and just recap on the situation, because that may not happen in the very busy days that we have now. So I'm trying to give that almost on the spot, if permissible, and that has been well accepted by the team. I think even that clarity in terms of communication and that almost increased communication that we are having has increased quite a bit. And then I've installed much more regularly virtual coffee chats. We have them almost every day now, not with particularly my team, but I'm participating with other teams as well. It's just making sure that the team is aligned and that we have a clear understanding of what we are working towards. And in the past, we had these meetings maybe once a week. Now we have them every other day, maybe, because we feel the need for more alignment, just to make sure we are on the same page.
Love it. It's very interesting how on one end you create that social environment with informal discussion, but on the other end, when you are in meetings or in feedback, you tend to be even more precise and accurate and making sure that misunderstandings are actually avoided. So two extremes in a way, working together to create the right communication in the team. Very, very interesting. That's right. What are the values you relied on, or you rely, because we are still in it, or that were strengthened during this time?
Yeah, for me, it has helped me to play up the transparency, and I would also say the honesty. And I mean, these both values, I would say, are very true to my heart, and very close to how I've been as an executive and as a person have been trying to communicate with teams and individuals. But I think I've even played that more up. There's certainly, and I'm saying this over and over, there's no piece of information I want to withhold or hold back from the team, for example. And the same goes for the honesty. I'm in this situation, there is really no time for being political. There's no time for not playing fair. There's no time for, I think we are all in this together, and this feeling of, something from the outside is really affecting us. So we have to be stronger together, as really well aligned with the team, and with, in particular, these two values when it comes to honesty, transparency, and openness, I would say as well. And without these, I don't think we would be going through that crisis so well as a team and as a company, I would say. Great
to hear. Before we go, what are the 2 keywords you would give to a CEO or general manager to just keep in mind throughout a circumstance like we're going through? Your 2 keywords.
I would say the one is connecting to all levels of the organization more than ever. So the keyword is keep connecting, but really in the sense of ensure it's happening at all levels, not just with your leadership team. And then seize the opportunities. I think there's a lot of opportunities that you have, and there's a balance as with any crisis. But I can certainly see on the personal as well as on the professional side, there may be some nuggets that it's just important to remember and not being dragged down. So seize the opportunities would be the second piece.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all your experience through this time. Thank you very much, Stefan.
Thank you, Joel. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.